it begins.
Hey Mary, what's going on?
I don't know. This thing's not working right.
The NES I gave you?
Mm-hmm.
Was it? It's not working at all?
No,
What have the kids been doing? Have they hit that reset button?
they have been.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's not a good thing. Hi everybody, thank you for joining me on today's edition of Glen's Retro Show. You know, sometimes you give a gift with the best of intentions and the people who get it enjoy it, but there's some small issues that cause some problems. And that happens to be the case with the little NesPi Raspberry Pi 3 Nintendo case. I have one right here. I purchased actually two of these. ETAPrime had posted on his Facebook page back when it first was released, and I got two for $19. They quickly started to shoot up to like $60, which is crazy. But I think now if you look, you can probably find them for about $25, which is still respectable. It's a really nice case. You can tell they put a lot of thought into the case itself. It's injected molded. You can get to all the different ports on the back, HDMI, the composite audio, video, power, the SD card. It's got the USB ports in the front for the game controllers. You can flip the lid up and you have Ethernet port and more USB controllers. Some people don't like that there. Me, it doesn't bother me because I use the Wi-Fi. So I think they did a really nice job, and they have a power and reset button, and it really does look like a really miniature version of the original NES. You can see it's much smaller, and they really did a nice job with it. There was a lot of thought put into this, which is a little shocking that they made one, I don't want to say catastrophic problem, but it's a big issue. The reset button on here, what it does is it simply kills the power to the Raspberry Pi. Now in the original NES, which obviously this was based on, you hit the reset button, it does reset the game. It resets the power. And that's fine because it's a ROM cartridge. They really went too detailed into making this like this, because a reset button on a Raspberry Pi killing the power with the operating system still loaded is not good. Sometimes you might be okay, but you really do run a risk of corrupting the operating system or corrupting the ROMs on there. And then you have to either A, completely reinstall everything from scratch, or if you made a backup copy, reload your SD card. Again, it's not horrible, but when they put so much thought into this case, it's a little weird they didn't take that into account. Now again, ETAPrime and a few other people had posted some modifications to this little case to do a soft shutdown. And I actually purchased everything he had on his Facebook page and his video, filed it to the letter, and I wasn't able to get it to work. As soon as it was connected, it would boot up to the Raspberry Pi boot up logo and immediately began a shutdown. Now, he originally was using a 50 and a 100 resistors going to GPO number 5. And it looked like a sound way of doing it. Again, I've seen other people doing it that way. Now, here's the original ETAPrime version with a 50 ohm resistor and a 100 ohm resistor and a ground cable. Now, I have seen this with a 100 ohm resistor and a 150 ohm resistor, which I also tried, but it didn't seem to make a difference. Okay, here's my take based on ETAPrime's original video. Again, please no hate. I'm a big fan of ETAPrime. This just did not work for me. I'm trying to help other people who said it didn't work for them. So you can see I have a 50 ohm resistor at the top, 100 ohm at the bottom. I soldered the U shape and the line going across just as he showed in his video on the reset button. And you'll see in the following video it just did not work. It would start to power up and it would just immediately shut down. but I could not get it to work. I tried increasing the resistors from 50 and 100 to 100 and 150, thinking maybe there was some bleed through still, initiating the GPIO pin number 5, but I still couldn't get it to work. I tried different GPIO pins. I tried messing with different resistor values. I tried going to different grounding points. Again, as soon as I went to the logo, it immediately began a shutdown. I even tried different software builds and doing it from scratch. Immediate shutdown. I've seen other videos where people completely rewired the power board to everything else, and it was crazy and complicated. There's so many wires going all over the place. It was a mess. So my solutions is, I think, a very good between ETAPrime videos, resistor mod, which if it works for you, kudos. It should work. It just was not working for me. And the crazy modifications people doing rewiring the whole board. Mine does require some soldering. You are going to cut 4 traces on the power board and run 2 jumper cables, and then 2 wires, one to GPIO pin number 5 and one to a ground, and that's it. And this will definitely work for everyone because I'm basically isolating the power pin button and the power pin for the reset button. So it'll act like a normal GPIO pin number 5 shutdown. So without any further ado, let's get started. It's not too complicated if you can use a soldering iron. And soldering, a lot of people get concerned about it. I hear a lot of people messaging me saying, I can't solder, I can't solder. It's really not that hard. There's some videos up there. You can buy a small soldering iron, practice on an old motherboard. It's actually not very hard at all. People think it is, but it's not. So without further ado, let's get this guy converted so it does a safe shutdown with that reset button instead of crashing the operating system. Let's get started. There is one other thing I'd like to mention. There's a gentleman by the name of Adam who has a website called DNA Dimension Designs. And he actually makes replacement NES and SNES decals for these small consoles like the 501 NES Classic you've probably found on eBay, the NesPi case, or even 3D printed cases. And they're pretty reasonable. He ships in the US for $1 and overseas for $3. And the decals we can see here for the NES, the front are $4 and the back are $4. He's doing a complete set for the SNES for $8. And the decals are extremely high quality. I haven't gotten it myself yet, but I do plan on ordering some. And everyone I've talked to who have gotten them, I've been extremely happy with the quality. And basically what you do is you get these decals and you just have to cut it out of the sheet as best you can, nice and close. The closer the better. And you basically put a bead of water down on your case and you put the decal in warm water like we used to do when we were kids building little models. And what you do is you simply position it as best you can on the case and let it dry a little bit. And once it's dry, that's it. But so far, everyone is putting these on. You can see here how it turns out. I've been very happy with the quality. So just take a look at his site, DNA Dimension Designs, and if you want to, pick up some of these decals. Again, they seem to be very high quality, and everyone's been very happy with them. And I plan on doing the same shortly. Okay, first and foremost, I want to apologize. I have some allergies going on right now, so I'm a little bit nasally. So I apologize for that, number one. And number two, I do want to say that I'm a huge fan of ETAPrime. I don't want this to be any type of hate video or anything like that. I'm just offering another solution to something he had done, and it just didn't work for me. But I do think ETAPrime does excellent videos, and I'm a big fan of his. Now, here is the open NesPi case. You can see this is all stock. I have my Raspberry Pi 3 here, and all the parts that came with the unit. To get inside, if you didn't know, there's just 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the top will lift right off. The next thing we need to do is remove 2 screws from the Ethernet USB board. There'll be a black screw right here and a black screw right here. Unscrew those, set them aside, and you can lift up this this particular part. Now again, you might want to take everything out of the case if you want to, if you're not really good at soldering. I'm pretty good at it, so I just move things out of the way. But if you don't feel comfortable, take everything out of the case. Once you pull this up, the power board here is held on by 2 screws as well. One screw is here and the other screw is here. Just take these 2 screws out and this power board will lift up. And I do hope that NesPi does a new revision of this power board and fix this issue. It's not difficult to do from them, and it would really make this case much better. Again, it's a great case, but this reset button killing power to the Pi is just such a letdown that it's working that way. But in any case, pull out these screws. You can lift everything out of the way. Okay, here's the current power board again. Let's hope that NesPi does an update to this revision and makes one that the reset button actually works in. But for now, this will work. Again, we're going to completely isolate the power and reset button, so this will definitely work. So you can see here is where the main issue comes in. The power comes in from the back and feeds this line right here, which goes to the reset button to the power switch, and then comes out and back down. It also feeds your LED. But what happens is when you hit the reset button, it removes the power rail on, I'm assuming this guy right here, and then that's it. It just hard crashes your Pi. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and isolate and jump over the reset button. It's completely isolating it so that the power is fed no matter what you do to this reset button. So what I did was I just took an X-Acto knife. You can use a Dremel tool, whatever you like, but you need to cut each one of these power traces completely through. Again, you have to be very careful that you actually are getting it completely. You don't want any power getting to this reset button. So if you press it, you pump 5 volts into the 5-pin GPIO. You don't want to do that. So again, just inspect to make sure you cut completely through. It's not a multi-layer board, so you don't have to worry about things underneath it being cut. But just go through nice and cleanly a couple times. Make sure it's good. Use a magnifying lens if you have to. Just make sure you're completely cut through in all of these areas. It's very important. And just another angle showing you that it is cut completely through on this trace, completely cut through on this trace. Okay, so you can see here once again, we made sure we're cut through cleanly. Use the same X-Acto knife, just to very lightly scratch you off the outer coating. You want to expose the copper underneath these 4 areas. Just again, make sure you cut through completely, scratch lightly, just enough to reveal the silver below. You don't want to go too hard and remove that coating because we need this. Okay, so scratch up nice and light to reveal those pads. Once you've done that, next thing you're going to do is just put down some flux. You have to have flux. Try to put solder on here will not make a good bonded contact. The flux will make sure the solder adheres to these copper points really well and make a good solid connection. It won't break. Okay, so be very careful when you do that. And then all you do is take a little solder, and you can see here, make some nice solder blobs. Make sure that none of them are crossing over to the other rail. You know, it's easy on this one, obviously, but you want to make sure nothing gets over to the other side where the reset button is. Very important. You don't want to put any power through this through this reset button once we complete this. But just make some nice solder balls. Make sure they're good, and that no one is shorting out with anyone else. Okay, so I like to try and reuse as many things as I can if it's possible. I had an old AT power supply and that I already cut up anyway, so I took some wire from that. But it's very important that you tin these wires, dip them in some flux, and then put the solder on them so it's absorbed into the wire. Very important for a good connection. Then again, put the drop of flux, touch your soldering iron, and the wire will adhere and make a really good bond. So good you can still bend the wire without worrying about the wire coming off or the solder breaking off the pads you made. So we have to do one here and one here. You can see we're simply bridging the power, completely bypassing the reset switch. Then we do the same thing here. Again, the wires don't have to be this long. I was a little long on this one, but you have to make them long enough where you can move them around a little bit, because you can see here, one little boo-boo I made is the screw hole is here, and this is the other hole for here and here. So I'll have to redo these wires. You'll see a little bit later. I wasn't paying attention, but it wasn't a big deal. My mistakes, again, is your easier way of doing it. So you can see I end up covering both the holes that are needed here. Now, I did have to cut this down a little bit, because the wire is still going to be, this guy right here, this first one, is going to be right about here. So you have to cut this down a little bit. But I did salvage this and this, which will hold the board into place really well. But again, you can see we completely isolated and bypassed the reset button. So now when you power this thing on, the power switch will work. You can hit this all you want. It's dead, which is what we want for right now. Again, just another angle to see how the wiring was done. And there's just enough wire where I can move them around if necessary. But this spot here did have to be, I had to change, and I'll show you in a minute how I had to change the soldering in that area so I can still fit it into this hole over here. So you can see now we're working on the other end of the power board. We're going to work now with the reset button. You can see ETAPrime was still dead on with how you want to wire this, as far as getting a wire with a connector already, because we're going to still be using the connector that came with the NesPi case. But what I've done is, once we isolated the power, which we've already done now previously, and this is now completely isolated, pin number 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So pin 1, we soldered on, put some flux down, soldered on a wire with a connector on it, because we're going to still put that into pin number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right across the black wire, the yellow wire is going to go in. That's our GPIO pin number 5, which is going to be used to initiate the safe shutdown command. Okay, so just do that. And the next thing we're going to do is I put a ground wire on as well. You probably could have taken the second one here. So the third one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our third one here is our ground wire. You probably could have took this over to ground over here or ground over here, but I had another one of these connectors already. So I'm going to put that into pin 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's where this guy's going to go in, and that'll be my ground for the switch. So I just completely isolated it from the power board just because that's how I wanted to do it. So again, you can see here the wires. Make sure no one is bridged. The first pin here is our yellow, which is GPIO pin number 5. Then 2, 3 is our ground, which is going to GPIO pin number 9. And that's all we need to do. That's it. Now we have to put everything back in place. Now when I started to put it back in, I noticed I was hitting on this spot, which is why I had to hitting in this spot over here. See the wires? And that's why I had to kind of change how I ran these wires. So you can see I did it right here. I simply moved this in as close as I could so I could still get this guy into here. And I had to cut this out a little bit because this would have been hitting right on top of it. And then this can go here. So everything else was fine. I just had to rewire this inner one to be as close as I can get it to the reset button and then bend it in just so I can get him to here, him to here, and cut this out just so this guy can go in. But that's really it. Once that's done, just another angle for you guys to see a little bit better. See if I zoom in a little bit more. You can see how that was done. Then you can put it back in. Make sure your little plastic guidance hole is here and here. Put in our 2 black screws to lock this guy down. Now these guys are more than far enough away where it's not going to touch anything here. You can put some electrical tape or Teflon tape on here if you want, but honestly there's really no chance of it touching anything up here. It's far enough away, but again, you can do it if you want. See another angle. See, it's actually below the solder points in these other areas, so there's plenty of room in here from where they're sitting. Now you can see here's my 2 wires. My first wire is going to GPIO pin number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my ground wire is going to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's my ground, and that's my GPIO pin number 5. When you hit this, it's isolated, and it will initiate a shutdown without interfering. Well, I was having a lot of issues with it doing a shutdown with the other ways of doing it. So you can see the wires here sticking out. Very easy. We're just going to tuck them in underneath. You can see, just push them right on down. Here's my bridged wires. They're still well out of the way. And you can see it's coming right up and it's nice and clean. Then all you need to do is close the case again, put in your screws, and it's time to test it. Hey, okay, I made some adjustments to this. You want to give it a try?
Sure.
Peace. Hey, Mary.
What's up?
Okay, I made some changes to that reset button now.
Okay.
Now when you press it, it'll do what's called a safe shutdown versus just resetting the power in the middle of the game. That's probably what caused the problem. It probably corrupted the card. So let me show you how it works.
All right, perfect.
So hit the power button on there first. This classic console was made specifically for the Parker family. Thanks for being great neighbors and great friends. Enjoy the games and remember, game on. Okay, now you're inside, right?
Awesome.
You can pick whatever game you want, like before, but now hit that reset button, and it'll do what's called a safe shutdown. And there it goes. And once it goes off, the screen goes off, you hit the power button.
Perfect.
Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I hope you found my tutorial easy to follow, and as you can see, it's just a regular GPIO number 5 shutdown command since I isolated the reset button. So I hope you did enjoy this video, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember everyone, game on.
Sit, Blue Blue, sit. Good dog.